Thanks, Karine. I wanted to ask about the White House thoughts on congressional Republicans stepping up oversight efforts of U.S. aid to Ukraine. House Oversight yesterday called for extra documentation of the aid, House Appropriations, and House Armed Services. They plan oversight hearings next week. I mean, what does the White House think of all this Republican scrutiny?
So look, I mean, I've said this before, and I'll say this again. When it comes to these oversight hearings, we've been very clear. The president has been very clear. He's going to focus on what the American people want us to focus on, which is continuing to work to lower inflation, continuing to make sure that we have an economy that works for all, and continue to make sure that we're fighting for just individual freedoms. And that is something that we saw after the midterms. That was very clear what the voters wanted to see. They wanted to see us move forward in a bipartisan way to deliver on those things that I just listed out. Look, when it comes to Ukraine aid, I think what is probably the thing that I would say here is that we have seen bipartisan support when it comes to Ukraine aid. When you look at the support in Congress, and like the president said, some House Republicans were in Ukraine themselves, meeting with President Zelensky just this week to vow their support for what is for their fight, for the Ukrainians' fight for freedom and for their democracy. And so again, we're providing military, security, and economic support to the Ukrainians to fight for their freedom. We think it's an important thing to do as the United States, to make sure that democracy is being fought for, and we are standing up for that. And so I'll just leave it there.
But is there no concern about the extra calls for oversight? I mean, it seems to be a response to their constituents, at least, of a softening of support for U.S. aid. There have been recent polls. Absolutely, you're right that bipartisan support is still there, but there has been, after a year, there has been a softening of support. Polls show that. Is that a concern of the president, that some Americans, at least, their support for U.S. aid, or that much U.S. aid going to Ukraine, is not what it used to be?
Look, I think that, and we have seen that, Americans know what is at stake here. They understand that freedom is at stake. They understand that democracy is at stake. And they understand the role that we play as a country globally. And that is something that we truly believe. And so the president believes we have a role to play, and we've seen it. We've seen it with the alliance, the strong alliance of NATO. Remember, NATO was supposed to be torn apart and fall, just like Kyiv was supposed to fall, and it became stronger. We've seen the West come together. We've seen Europe come together, and we saw the president really speak to that on the world stage this week. Not just to Ukrainians, not just to Russia, but to the world stage about what this means for all of us. So we think Americans understand that. We think that the Americans see that, and we're going to continue to do the work that is needed to protect democracy.
Thanks, Karine. These sanctions tomorrow, are they going to be announced by the whole of the G7 together, or is it going to be U.S. sanctions? And then just sort of how it's going to come out. Will it be coming out as part of that G7 meeting, or a separate announcement?
I don't want to get ahead. It's certainly something that the president will speak to when it comes to the sanctions, as I just laid out at the top. I'm not going to get ahead of what the president's going to announce tomorrow. There'll be a G7 meeting. As part of that, the president's going to be making an announcement on sanctions. I'm not going to get ahead of what the president's going to say, or how it's in what vehicle it's going to come out. Yeah, Peter.
Can I just ask you again, following up?